conducted under pursuant to provisions of the governor's executive order number N2920, which suspended certain requirements of the Brown Act in order to minimize the spread of COVID-19 virus. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please do the following. Meeting attendance on Zoom, webinar 865-8043-9727, or by dialing 669-900-6833 and using the webinar. Could we have a roll call, please? No, Pledge of Allegiance. Let's start with that. How about Eric? You'd like to lead us to Pledge of Allegiance?
I would love to. Thank you. Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Acey, an excused absence. Alternate Commissioner Cox.
Present.
Commissioner Sanders.
Present.
Commissioner Waggy, currently absent. Vice Chair Hovert.
Present.
And Chair Shanahan.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda review, changes, deletions?
No changes, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any? Sandra?
I reside on Hillsburg, right on the corner where the Times Square Garden condos are at. Is that a conflict of interest with everything that's going on right now?
No, I think you're fine. I mean, this is really just a review of a planning study that's not real specific to any kind of project that would be within 500 feet of your residence. So I think you're good.
And no vote tonight, so.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so any other declarations of conflict or questions? No, okay. I'll open it up to public comment period. Under this item, citizens may speak on matters within the Planning Commission's jurisdiction, which are not on the agenda. The Planning Commission is prohibited under public meeting law from taking action on matters that are not on the agenda. However, the commission may take citizens' input under advisement, direct staff to place the matter on future agenda for discussion and/or possible action, or refer matters to staff for follow-up. Members of the public may comment on any matter not on the agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any?
No hands are raised, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Number one we have is consent calendar minutes review from our regular meeting of March 2nd. You'll have a chance to check the minutes out and read them. Okay, we have a motion to approve minutes.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Okay, could I have a second, please? You're muted, Eric.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I'll second that motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sanders.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hovert.
Aye.
Alternate Commissioner Cox.
Aye.
And Chair Shanahan.
Aye,
Thank you.
thank you. Public hearing items, we have none. Non-public hearing items is our first item, and Assistant Manager Thompson, would you like to?
Yeah, sure, Chair. Thank you. So tonight we have an update on our downtown and TOD zoning designation amendments. We've been talking about this for a while. Just a little bit of background. This is an SB2 funded grant. The state put out a lot of money for cities to apply for grants to encourage housing is really the goal of the grant. we did present a number of different projects that the council could have chose from, and this was the one that they did choose. And so we have hired Placeworks, planning consulting firm out of Berkeley. The goals of the SB2 really is to accelerate housing production downtown, to help streamline approval of housing, particularly low and moderate income. And so we've been working with Bruce Brubaker and Abe Shepard, who are both here tonight, who are going to walk us through. It looks like Logan is here too. We're going to walk us through their findings. This is kind of the first deliverable of our scope of contract with Placeworks. And it's kind of, like almost like a literature review of our current zoning and plans that are in place that pertain to the areas that we've been discussing. One of the more cool things I think that we're going to be looking at is opportunity sites. So along with staff and the consultants, we've discussed vacant parcels in the area and what could possibly go there. So a number of them have been identified. We're going to try to whittle that down. And what really will happen is there'll be just a little bit of extra planning work done for those sites going forward. So the reason, I thank you guys for being able to meet a special meeting. I know it's in the middle of the week, and we're on a tight timeline to get this project done, and the 2 weeks really did make a difference. So again, I thank you very much for being available for a special meeting. With that, I'd like to turn it over to, I guess, Bruce. It sounds like Bruce is going to be the first presenter. Take it away, Bruce.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Thanks for the intro, Kevin. And I heard something about somebody else's PowerPoint show, and I hope that ours is going to be better. And so now the pressure is on, and I'm really hoping we live up to it. I would like to share my screen, if that's okay. So I'll just go ahead and try that. And go to a full screen. I trust everyone can see the slides, or this first slide. Is that right? Someone could nod? Okay. So yeah, we've been working with Kevin, Raphael, and David on this initial phase of our project, which is a grant funded project to look at increasing housing opportunity in the downtown area of Cloverdale. Tonight, we're really appreciative that you're coming to this special meeting to, we're going to update you about our progress, what we're doing, what some of the objectives of the project are. We'll kind of start a conversation about your zoning code and look at opportunity sites for development. So this is early in our project. We really are in a phase where we've done a bunch of background looking at your codes, and we're about to delve into making some proposals for potential changes or refinements to your zoning code. The timeline is like this. We're hoping to finish the project in December. Working from now, we're going to be doing some development analysis, looking at really what are some of the factors that are preventing housing development from happening in downtown. And then we are proposing, or we'll be holding a public workshop in June. There'll be some more work done on ordinance amendments in July through August. This project will need some kind of environmental review, so we'll do CEQA documents through November, and then the final completion and hearings in December. There's another workshop, I forgot to mention, workshop 2 in September, which will be the time when we're releasing the draft ordinance revisions. So it's a fairly quick timeline, but I think it'll be an interesting project for people, and hopefully for the community to weigh in on as well. The planning area that we're looking at is really the downtown zoning code areas and the TOD areas as defined in the in your zoning code. This is the zoning for the area that we're looking at. Along Cloverdale Boulevard is the pink, which is downtown commercial zone. The TOD zone is dark purple. And the area in light purple are the office multifamily residential area zoning that surrounds your downtown commercial zone. So we're really looking at only those three zones for potential changes. We're not looking at other residential zones, two-family residential that surrounds it or single-family residential. We're not looking at any changes to any zones outside of these kind of more downtown-oriented zones. What is the project about? Well, we are going to be, we're you know, statewide, there's a huge issue about housing and affordability. There has been a lot of interest in the part of legislature to find ways to encourage more housing to be built. There's not enough being built. It's not keeping up with demand. That lack of housing is creating increased inequality in some places and lack of opportunities for people to live in some places. Too much of people's income is going towards their housing costs and not leaving enough for other household costs. It also means that fewer and fewer people in California are able to afford to become a homeowner. And there's more people than ever that are experiencing homelessness. And, you know, all these issues are a little bit exacerbated by the coronavirus, the COVID, you know, crisis of the last year. So this is, in a way, it's a crisis on top of a kind of slow building crisis in housing that we've had for a few years.
Bruce, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you, but maybe at some point, and maybe you have this already, and if you don't, I apologize, but maybe someone could speak to, you know, how residential units how they help a downtown, you know, and I don't mean to put you on a spot, you know, and I think everyone can probably answer this in their own mind, but you know, it's the old adage of, you know, more people walking around, more lively after dark, and more, you know, more people patronizing businesses. So in addition to providing housing, you know, in the ways you just described for the situation, it's also, in my opinion, an economic development tool.
Definitely. Kevin, you've read our mind. I think the next slide. Yeah.
Sorry.
We do have this slide for benefits, which I'll get to in a few minutes. So thank you for bringing that up, but it's really a critical aspect of this project. It's not only housing, but it's also economic development, as Kevin said. So what are some of the solutions to this crisis? You know, housing, the crisis is statewide. Housing is a problem. The solution is local. So housing is always built. You don't build a statewide housing. You build housing at each jurisdiction level. And so the way that planners and legislators are looking at kind of addressing the crisis is to look at ways to give jurisdictions, local jurisdictions, tools to enable housing at the local level. Okay, so the state of California has passed a lot of recent legislation to help facilitate that. You know, some of that relates to areas that are not exactly the character of Cloverdale, like, you know, really focusing new housing in areas that are, you know, highly that are fairly intense and have transit already. But there's opportunities for places like Cloverdale as well. So looking at distribution of housing throughout the state and throughout a variety of jurisdictions. So these bills have been developed to kind of hit those points. Accelerate housing production is a key point. Streamline approval of housing development for all income levels is something that's really a target. Many times developers are finding that the process of getting housing approved is very difficult and time consuming. And the read is that if there was an easier pathway for housing that local jurisdictions want in any case, then that would incentivize housing. They're also looking at ways of facilitating housing affordability, whether through direct grants or other streamlining efforts. And then there are state planning priorities for increasing development of housing around transit. So that's another part of the statewide programs that are happening. So for Cloverdale, what are the reasons why the downtown zoning districts make sense? There are a couple here, and I'll mention some other economic development measures that Kevin mentioned, but the first is that you have a RHNA allocation, a regional housing needs allocation, which the city will need to satisfy. There's a statewide rule that requires municipalities to zone for a certain amount of residential units at a certain level of affordability, so that every jurisdiction in California has an allocation and they have to meet their allocation. The housing element is a tool that cities use to meet the allocation, and it generally includes some thinking about rezoning or ensuring that there's enough zoning of the appropriate type to ensure that there could be affordable housing created in every jurisdiction. This includes Cloverdale has an allocation, and this project that we're working on now, the zoning districts update, actually will help when you start your housing element, which should be fairly soon. You'll start your next cycle of the housing element. And this should allow you to get ahead of it a little bit. So we're working on the downtown area. What are ways to maybe encourage housing downtown? And then how does that get fed into the housing element? And it should make things easier for adoption of the housing element. So there's a couple good reasons here for why to do this zoning districts update that we're working on. Some of the benefits. So obviously, besides additional housing, which is a need that every community has, one of the reason to update the zoning code is to make sure that you can attract development that's in alignment with your priorities. So we're going to be working on this project. It's a community-based project. We'll get input from yourselves. We'll get input from community members, and we'll understand city priorities. And hopefully, the zoning updates that we do will be in alignment with those priorities. So we'll be leading the way to shape the zoning priorities rather than kind of reacting and coming from behind. The other advantage of the update is to provide for more equity and lower housing costs for the city, and to improve you already have a very walkable city center. We want to make sure that whatever happens, any new development will augment that, will actually enhance your walkability and not detract from it. And then wherever there's new housing units downtown, that's a way to strengthen your existing businesses in downtown and create a more vibrant downtown. And many studies have shown that downtown housing actually extends the number of hours that people are active on the street. So you have people active in the evenings all day long. And this is a real benefit to downtowns, particularly smaller downtowns. And whatever new housing happens here can help support existing and future transit use. We know the smart rail is some ways off, years, decades maybe, but there's existing transit that can be augmented, and eventually there will be a train in Cloverdale. And so this new housing will support that eventual transit connection. And I would also add to this, bicycle and pedestrian connectivity as well can be supported through this additional housing. There's a lot of good reasons to update the zoning code. Kevin, did that kind of hit on the points you were thinking?
Yes, thank you, Bruce.
Okay, okay. So regarding our work, so we've been working for the last couple of months. We've reviewed a bunch of documents. Here's some of the documents we looked at. They all relate in some way or another to your downtown. And we've drawn out aspects of these documents and put them together into a background report that summarizes what we see are some of the issues, some of the key elements of your documents, and maybe starting to identify some opportunities for updates. And so I'll mention some of those right now, and I would love to hear from the Planning Commission any thoughts about what you see. Well, I kind of have two questions, and I'm going to finish my bit of presentation shortly, and we'll open it up for questions and answers. And then we'll return and go into some opportunity sites. And we have 5 or 6 opportunity sites identified. But I think it would be good to kind of get some conversation before we do that opportunity sites review. So as you're looking at this, I would like the Planning Commission to think about, well, are there ways that we can look at the zoning to see how to incentivize housing in downtown? There hasn't been very much development in downtown. You have a fairly recent precise plan, a downtown precise plan, and haven't seen so much development come from that. And so, you know, you all have probably a better idea than I have about what are some of the obstacles for development in downtown. So think about that as I'm going through your zoning in some detail here. Okay. So here's the zoning. I've already mentioned 3 zones: downtown commercial along Cloverdale, transit-oriented development on the approach to the transit station, and then the office and multifamily district, which is kind of a transitional district from your downtown to the more residential districts outside of your downtown. Okay, here are some ideas that we've had about existing standards and ways that we may think about changing. They include residential density, floor area ratio, height. We have some split zoned lots in the downtown, accessory dwelling units, and then parking requirements, density bonuses, and downtown design standards. So I'll go through a few of those right now in some detail and give you some of my thoughts, but I mean, I'm here to listen also. So we'll want to hear back from you. The density allowed in these zones, you can see there's a column for each zone. Downtown is 20 units to the acre. TOD is 20 units to the acre. Office residential is 8 to 20 units to the acre. These densities you might think about increasing densities. It may be that these are capping the kind of development that you would like to see here, and they can't quite make it with the densities that are provided here. So that's something that you could consider, or that we could consider expanding. Some of the other standards here, there's no requirements in the downtown zone or the TOD zone for a minimum lot area, minimum width, minimum lot depth, or setbacks. So all these things that do kind of get in the way of some development in some cases, there's no minimums in the 2 main districts. So we don't have to worry about changes to that, because that's pretty much where you want it to be. But what about the office residential district? Are some of these requirements of a 20-foot front setback, is that appropriate to the area? Or if it was lessened, is that going to maybe allow people to do some development that they can't really do with that front setback? So this is just food for thought. Some other standards are lot coverage. and floor area ratio. So lot coverage allowed to be 100% in the downtown and TOD. That's already a very good coverage for incentivizing development. You can't go any higher than that. 60% in office residential, maybe that's something that we could look at. Floor area ratio, again, 3 is a pretty good, and floor area ratio is you take the lot square footage and you say that times the floor area ratio is how many square feet I can build on that site. So you have 1,000 square foot site. You can build 3,000 square feet of building on a lot in downtown and TOD. And that's a good floor area ratio. It's probably not likely that you'll exceed it, but we could look in more detail about that. But again, office residential, maybe that's a bit low for the kinds of downtown development that you might want to see. Building height, it already allows 40 feet or 3 stories. Maybe in some locations you could imagine a 4-story building. I know in some places where we work, this might be controversial. That's something though that we could open up and discuss. And then first floor ceiling height is not an issue. Distance between buildings not an issue, and open space can be an issue because if you have onerous conditions on open space for relatively small lots that you have in your downtown, this may be also a provision that's hard to meet for new development. Okay. Current permitted uses. Well, what this shows is, and here's your legend. So PP is permitted subject to plot plan, and multifamily residential use is permitted fairly well in all these zones. So I don't know that there's any changes needed to the land use table in terms of allowing residential. Certainly the downtown plan encourages mixed use as well, and we can do mixed use. So I think there may not be any issues regarding permitted uses, but I'm open, and Kevin might have some thoughts about this as well. Parking is always an issue. Everywhere we're working right now, we're bumping up into parking requirements. Whether it's inside Bay Area, San Mateo or Berkeley, or if it's Antioch, Outer Ring Bay Area, or if it's Reading, or if it's Cloverdale. What development is finding is that parking is super expensive to provide. And the more parking required per unit, then the harder it is to make the project feasible. So this is always going to be something that we want to look at for updating. And I understand there's a tradition in places like Cloverdale with parking, and there is a need for downtown businesses, and we get that. And so the question is, what is our balance for providing, making sure that there's enough parking, but you're not requiring developers to build maybe even more parking than is needed, and that's just driving development away. So these are some of the things that we'll want to be looking at. You have a fairly high standard parking requirement compared to other jurisdictions that we've worked in for residential parking. For 2-bedroom units, 1 covered space per unit and 2 shared spaces per unit. Can we go a little bit less on that? That's going to be a question that we want to talk about with you and also with the community. In your downtown zone and the TOD zone, there is I guess, pardon me. Sorry, I've got a cough. Sorry. In these zones, there's less of a parking requirement per unit. So those are already kind of adjusted in a way to be a little bit less requirement, high requirement for parking. So anyways, that's going to be a discussion. I won't get into the details now, but I'd like to hear thoughts. Okay, with that, that's my last slide. before I hand it over to Abe to talk about opportunity sites. And I'm wondering if anybody had any questions about the thing I've just presented, or any thoughts about some of these issues regarding zoning. And I'm happy to hear anyone, and we'll be taking notes, and any question is fine.
Hi, Bruce. This is Rafael. I'll just jump in, start it off at least with the slide you have up here. This kind of came up actually, the DTC and TOD, this provision here with the use permit approval, parking for a residential portion of a mixed use project may be reduced to 1 space per unit, provided that this square footage of each residential use will not exceed twice the square footage of the first floor commercial. So that one there kind of came up actually with this project. We're talking with some potential developers on it. Actually, I think they submitted today in a parcel that's zone TOD, and not that it's, you know, a major issue, I think, with this, because they're going to be able to get a density bonus and ask for some concessions. But she just initially reading it, she thought that they were able to qualify for that, but because it's 100% residential. So, you know, this one is obviously for mixed use projects that are assuming, you know, first floor commercial and upstairs residential. So, you know, maybe it's an opportunity for that provision maybe to be amended slightly to, you know, for 100% residential. Just a thought, just throw that out there.
That's interesting. You have, Raphael, you have a test case coming up, and I guess the Planning Commission is going to be seeing that at some point. But yeah, so the applicant is saying if this requirement could be slightly rewritten, it would be beneficial to making the project work. Does the commission have any thoughts about parking, whether it's that specific issue or other issues that you've seen?
I would like to make a small comment about parking, if I may. Being that this is sort of a commuter town, there's a lot of vehicles here. For the people that live here in the apartments and even in the single family residences, there's a lot of multi-generational families that have a lot of vehicles. And so it would, at least in my opinion, it would be difficult for the people that live here and commute from here to other areas to find places to park their vehicles if we reduced the requirement for parking in any of these areas that we're talking about. That's just my opinion.
I also
Okay.
want to
Go
share
ahead.
this downtown zoning update. I think it's a great enhancement to our community, and it addresses some of the downtown areas that can benefit from the zoning change. And it offers an opportunity for economic growth and a vibrant walking downtown. But I do have a couple of technical questions. One of them is the Senate Bill 330. That one attempts to address the current housing supply crisis, and it suspends certain restrictions on housing developments. It also removes local discretion in the approval of the housing developments. This bill restricts local government when it comes to decisions related to land uses for housing. So my question is, if we reduce density, if we increase density, then we cannot go back. That's it. So when a housing project wants to do something, it'll stay at that. The same thing goes with parking. Whatever standards we adjust, that's it. With this SB 330, I have a little bit of concern with that because it does tie our hands. Can you talk a little bit about SB 330?
Yeah, thank you for that comment. One thing about SB 330 and many of the provisions that are coming forward is the benefit that local jurisdictions have in writing objective standards, right? So part of the rules behind SB 330 is that development should follow objective design standards if they exist. And so communities that have not written your standards in a way that that are easy to follow, like many communities, and including the downtown specific plan, has design guidelines, but they're not standards. And so part of the effort that we're going to be looking at is making sure that, I think it actually gives more power to the local jurisdiction if you can arrive at a set of standards that you feel is going to be appropriate for the downtown area, and put that into your code, then that does actually give you, then you can point to that, and all developers need to meet that. So it is a mechanism to, the process that we're going through now is a mechanism to actually give you perhaps more power for review of future projects.
I have another concern, and this has to do with the housing units. Right now, our regional housing need allocation number is 211, well, our requirement 211. And currently we have 118 reported units, and we had a shortfall of 93 units. However, if we add the recently approved Taylor Lynn Phase 2 and the Bumgardner Ranch project, our total housing units would be 435, 460 if we add the 25 Dry Creek Rancheria units. And now we have exceeded the RENA number by 249 units. Now, Kevin could correct me or let me know if that's correct. Also, but in all of this, I really like the development. I really like how the downtown's being developed and what's proposed. But my concern is, how are we addressing the additional demands on the infrastructure and the future developments as a result of this rezoning, like the water, the sewer, the fire, the police? So how do we address that? How as a city, we have those issues, and we have one housing. So how do we mitigate that? How do we address that?
This would be a good one for Kevin to answer. Are you up for taking that on?
I am. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions, particularly about sewer and water. And I think I shared with the commission that we are engaging GHD, a reputable engineering firm, to help us understand our capacity. Now, I further understand, and I'm understanding more and more as we're going into a drought, that yeah, we can process, water and clean water and get it to people and treat it on the other end of sewer. But if there's not a lot of water down there, that's a whole nother story. That's one that I don't think anyone really has a great answer for. But what I would say is, the other thing that we're putting into the budget for this next fiscal year is an updating of our impact fees. So, we do charge a fair amount of money to someone building, a residential unit in fees, predicated on the nexus of their impact on the system. So we are building up money. I understand now we are raising the sewer and water rates, but we've neglected those things for many years. And you've seen some of the pictures of some of our infrastructure. It's old, and the rates haven't gone up in a long time, and it's just now it's time to pay the piper, I should say. But some of those are funded through development, and I do believe that the more ratepayers we have, the better. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I think it does help the system when there's more ratepayers. We have fees. The best answer, Commissioner Holberts, is that we have fees to try to anticipate what the impacts are created by new development that we collect at the onset of, at issuance of building permits, to try to mitigate what the impacts are going forward. There are economic impact or, incentives to having more folks. My personal philosophy is, a little bit of growth is good, brings new people into the community and new energy. So, I mean, it's a balancing act. We definitely have to make sure our fees are up to date. And, we do have the general plan build out of 12,000 people that was contemplated by 2025. So yeah, it's an issue. We have to keep monitoring. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Kevin, can I follow up with a question? Build out 2025 are you anywhere close to that number, or is there room there for that?
Well, we're at about 9,000.
Okay,
And I've been saying this, and it's interesting to me at least, is that, you know, the Department of Finance, the State Department of Finance keeps tabs on population. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but according to them, you know, Cloverdale in 2019 lost 66 people. And you hear a lot about this out migration from California, which, you know, I think there's such a pent up demand for housing that it probably doesn't matter. And,
yeah.
but at any rate, it's.
Can I say a couple things about that?
Sure.
Yeah, so it seems like Cloverdale is actually the kind of place, given recent events the last year and how much people are able to do work remotely, Cloverdale is the kind of place where people would want to be. And that there could be, you know, more people moving to places like Cloverdale. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some increased demand given the overall, you know, seismic changes we're having to the entire world right now. And I would piggyback on that point by saying that the real benefit of providing those housing units downtown is multiple. You know, they would be infill housing, so you're not extending your utilities to, you know, surrounding parcels on the outskirts. Presumably you already have hookups, so generally it's more efficient and cost effective to do infill housing than greenfield housing. So that's one thing. But also the kind of people that you might see wanting to move it to a place like Cloverdale with a pretty little downtown and still within striking distance of the bay. And I think you might see some younger people wanting to live there, but they may want to live closer to downtown. You know, that's what we're finding in other places where we're working, is that the new kinds of housing in downtown are often what's attractive to you know, our kids and the kind of recent college graduates and so forth. So there's some things to think about in regards to what kind of growth you'll want to see in the future.
If I could just add on to kind of Bruce's point there, just put on my planner's hat and, you know, stay on my planner's soapbox a little bit. A little bit about Commissioner Sanders' you know, point earlier about the parking. You know, as you know, planner, you know, this is as a, you know, planner, I kind of put myself in these, you know, the shoes that I might be, you know, work this project that we're talking about. And, you know, for myself, I love my parking. I love a garage and I love my boat and I need parking. I agree with you, Commissioner Sanders. And I think parking is great, but, you know, for this project, we're just talking about the downtown and, you know, we're only talking about the downtown commercial, the TOD and areas there. And, you know, if I was moving to Cloverdale and I like my boat and I like my stuff, I'm going to be looking for a house that kind of has that. And I'm probably not going to be moving to the downtown. And the people, kind of to Bruce's point, the people that are going to be moving to downtown, they probably don't think like me. If I don't have a boat and they probably don't love their garage and they might have just one car and they like, you know, riding their bike. They like, you know, it's kind of a, you know, a different hat, a different person that maybe wants to live downtown. And so these parking things, it's not, you know, citywide. It wouldn't be, you know, for the R3, the R2, it's just the downtown. So just kind of put, you know, just to put the hat on, you know, put that kind of context on it, that we're just thinking of downtown and that hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, and Bruce, I'd like to, I've been doing planning a long time. I do put a lot of stock in, you know, what developers say about their projects, because I feel like they know best. And I would suspect if we dropped the parking to zero, just say zero, just hypothetically, you know, no parking required downtown, I would suspect that they would still want to provide parking for the marketability of their project. That's just been my take over the years, is that even though you're living downtown, you want to have somewhere to put your car or not have to park 2 blocks away. I mean, we're not downtown San Francisco. And I think that a developer would, probably recognize that, but I could be wrong, but I tend to ask them, what's been their experience in similar projects and the need for parking. And they usually have, good answers. So just a thought.
Definitely. The city of Buffalo just eliminated all parking minimums, with the idea that developers know best how many parking spaces to provide. And if a developer thinks they can sell the units to people who don't have so many cars, they can build less. But then what they're finding is that a lot of developers are building kind of the number of spaces that are required, which might be similar to what we're asking for here in Cloverdale. The question is, do we tell developers the best way to provide parking, or do developers, do that through the market? That's one of the questions here. And I'm open. I mean, we have this conversation every place we work. We just did the downtown plan in Reading, and there's a new project in Reading right in downtown, and it's 3 stories, and it has 1 space per unit, even though there's some 1 bedrooms and some 2 bedrooms units there. And that project is sold out and has a waiting list, so it's a kind of, there's seniors that moved in there. There's, people who welcome the opportunity to live right in downtown. So anyways, there's different ways to think about it. And it is good to, I think, listen to what developers are finding too. I'm wondering, besides the parking issue, if there's any other issues that some of the commissioners think might be an obstacle or a barrier. I don't know. We talked about height and coverage, or some of the setbacks in the office residential area. Is there anything else that kind of comes to mind from the commissioner's perspective?
Well, I personally would not want to reduce any setbacks, just because of the fact that we have a lot of pushback from the community as it is for allowing certain variances or allowing some of these developments to build within those setbacks that are part of our current development standards. So I wouldn't want to decrease those at all, personally.
Okay. Let's see, any other comments? Maybe any of the commissioners that haven't spoken yet?
I'm sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Having been part of this for a long, long time now, many of the residents here think of Cloverdale as a unique community, in that it has a charm to it, and especially in its downtown. And I think we have to be very careful in how we want to change that. And in some of the designs, like for instance, going up higher from 3 stories to 4 stories is going to change that a lot. Now, that being said, many of those folks that I'm speaking of are probably up there in years. And for the term that we're talking about, that may not be a problem. But I do consider their opinions as we speak. So just something to think about.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, someone else was going to say something.
Yeah, I've been on here a long time for a couple of weeks too. And I know the O&R district, we worked really hard maybe 10 years ago when we laid that out to make it what it is. And there was a lot of uproar about keeping that area the way it is, because that is historical Cloverdale. That's before the boulevard. That's where the old Main Street was. Commercial Street was. A lot of those homes are, 1870, 1880s. So again, working on the setbacks in that historical area, I think would really cause a lot of uproar, just because we had the uproar just when we were zoning it to O&R. So,
Well,
yeah.
that's great context. I mean, everything you tell us like that is very valuable to us.
The other part I have is on the TOD. I have a business downtown, and I talk to a lot of my neighbors who would love TOD to be able to have a shop, live upstairs, do all that in the facility like Windsor has.
Mhm.
I talked to a guy today who came in the shop, and he has one of the properties that is over on Asti with the TOD, and they are so excited that we are looking at this right now to give them an
Mhm.
opportunity to do something with that property they haven't been able to do. So,
Great.
that part I really think is a plus.
So, and actually Windsor is a pretty nice example to be able to point to, right? I mean, most people like it. It does seem pretty vibrant downtown. It's a bigger place than Cloverdale, so I don't know about 4-story, 5-story buildings. But some of the character is, I mean, this is kind of a nice character. So I think that is something that you can talk to people in Cloverdale and say, that works pretty well there. So are there other examples that people like to point to?
One thing that I would like to say to that, Windsor doesn't have an old town. It's not an old town. It's all very, very recent.
Yeah, right.
So everybody's really quite happy with what's going on. The developments are all about the same age and newer, and the design seems to be rather consistent. So I wouldn't want to bring Windsor to Cloverdale, or I am in favor of live-work situations, and I think that could work in Cloverdale, but on a case-by-case basis, not in a whole block-by-block situation.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you for that. Well, given that we've started talking about sites, why don't we go ahead? My colleague Abe Shepard will be presenting what we've looked at. We've identified a few sites as being places that new development could potentially happen. So Abe, are you able to, hold on. Are you able to go ahead and present this part of the program?
Sure thing. Thanks, Bruce. So as Bruce said, we have reviewed 5 sites as part of our existing conditions analysis, our initial analysis. What we'll do is we're going to work with city staff to select one of these sites to do further analysis and develop design concepts. And the design concepts will be really useful, we hope, to illustrate to community members, especially, how more intensive development can look while being compatible and supportive of Cloverdale's unique character and urban fabric. So these 5 sites, we have 3 in the downtown core area and 2 to the south parcels or sites are TOD. And you can go to the next slide. So opportunity site 1, which we're calling Cloverdale and 2nd, is located at a prominent location at Cloverdale and 2nd, also with frontage in the back on Commercial Street. Adjacent to the Cloverdale Performing Arts Center, facing downtown, about 2/3 of an acre, combining 2 parcels. They are split zoned, so you see red along Cloverdale Boulevard is downtown commercial, and the back half is office multifamily, OR zone. Currently uses, as you can see in photo A, B, and C, largely surface parking and a commercial storefront building on Cloverdale Boulevard, picture D, and just a small structure, kind of insubstantial, on the lower left side, currently a food pantry. So that's the first opportunity site. And then we're going to move to opportunity site 2, just to the south, So this is a smaller site, just about a quarter acre, but it's in a really prominent location across from Cloverdale Plaza, with high quality pedestrian facilities nearby, the mid-block pedestrian crossing, attractive landscape median, adjacencies, including a mix of retail, office, and restaurants with an attractive street front, and zoned pretty much, effectively all downtown commercial. There's just a little bit in the back, kind of the alleyway, that is zoned OR, but that's pretty insignificant. So photos C and D, or A and B, let's start there, from Cloverdale Boulevard, looking at the site, at the mid-block crossing, and C and D looking from the back of the site. Opportunity site 3, Bruce. We're calling Cloverdale East, Central Cloverdale East. So just kitty corner to opportunity site 2. It's about half an acre, one parcel, square shaped, provides flexibility in terms of design. A lot of surface parking facing the plaza, so it does not provide vitality to the plaza, to the main public space there. 2 commercial buildings, one double storefront on Cloverdale Boulevard and another facing the plaza at the old Broad Street. They do help support downtown's historic built fabric and pedestrian friendly environment. So that is opportunity site 3 overview. We can go to 4. We're calling this Cloverdale Gateway at Citrus Fair and Cloverdale Boulevard. So ideally positioned as a potential gateway to downtown. Unique shape may provide some design challenges and accessibility issues. You can see photos A and B and D show the vacant north side, the main parcel, which is about a third of an acre, and the south parcel about 0.2 acres, so combined parcel size of half an acre. Does contain an interesting Quonset hut building and another single-story structure. And I believe they're currently unused. There's some cool art in the vacant parcel, and you'll see in the zoning inset that these are transit-oriented development, TOD zoned, as is the surrounding area. Opportunity site 5. We're calling Rockydale Lane. I don't know if folks know Rockydale Lane, but we do.
Oh, we do.
Okay, good. It is, odd shaped. It's about 80 feet wide, 300 feet long, 4/10 of an acre. Also zoned TOD with some adjacent 2-family and public. I think it's public. What is it? Public or service commercial across the street. So consider compatibility with that. And this type of site probably suitable for medium density residential uses such as townhomes, maybe with some first floor commercial. Obviously, it's next to the mobile home park to the southwest, and other adjacencies, as I mentioned before, because of the zoning to the north, are single family homes, and obviously the freeway is right there too. So there will be opportunities to screen and provide a buffer from that in terms of noise and visibility. So that's an overview of the 5 sites that we have reviewed at this point. And we'd love to hear from you with any kind of feedback, ideas, questions about any of these 5 sites.
Abe, you can go back to that one. And Abe mentioned that they're going to work with staff, but we're really hoping that we can have the planning commission help us with this. And let's just try to walk them through what we're trying to get here, because we've got these vacant sites and key locations, but what are we trying to do with this planning exercise? We're trying to give one of these a little more attention, maybe maybe come up with some real, correct me if I'm wrong, Abe, here. I don't want to
Mhm.
go out of your scope here, but maybe some simple design concepts of what could go there, and how it could be laid out, and just really help the community have a vision for what might happen on one of these sites. And I think that's what we're trying to get here. And we don't have enough scope to do all 5, which would have been really cool, but we're trying to do one. Is that pretty accurate on what we're trying to? Yeah. So
Yeah, that's definitely, and that can kind of help us choose a good opportunity site to move forward with, one that will communicate in the best manner to the community, the potential. So definitely, that's the objective.
go ahead, Sandra. Sorry.
I think downtown would be great. Having either the 3 sites by the downtown would be ideal, so we could actually have a visual on the enhancement that would do for our community. Also, when you say that we're going to select one project, what exactly will you be presenting to us? It will be like a conceptual vision of an area. I mean, what is it that you're doing the analysis? What does that entail?
Yeah, so, and Bruce, you can addend me, but we'll be doing a concept, developing concepts for the site. And I think initially we'll have a couple versions, and we're going to the community in June to share our concepts, our initial concepts for the site. So that will help us further inform to develop a preferred alternative, a preferred concept for that location. So
I have a question about this too, if you don't mind. Have the property owners been contacted or involved in this, or will they? Because these are all private properties.
that's a good question. Bruce?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. No, we haven't reached out to property owners. Like we said, we won't actually be addressing schemes on all 5 of these sites. So we certainly could, with the assistance of staff, bring the property owner in. But one thing that, I mean, the way we started this process is just to look at vacant sites or very underutilized sites, presumably that these are opportunity sites where something could happen. We could certainly bring in conversation with the property owner when we narrow down to a single site.
I would strongly recommend it because all of these properties that we're looking at have really difficult owners. And we've been talking to them for years. And to be able to show one of these guys what could happen if they actually wanted to do it would be wonderful.
Yeah. Well, is there one that stands out?
Commissioner Sanders, I think we didn't want to contact them since we're still whittling it down. But once we landed on a site, then we're always intended to let the property owner know and they can participate. It's not going to be any kind of binding thing.
No.
For them.
Yeah, I
yeah,
understand
yeah,
that. I'm just looking at it from the point of view of somebody who may own one of these properties, and I'm kind of wondering how many dollars is the city going to spend coming up with a conceptual design for my property. Like, as a property owner, that sounds fantastic,
yeah.
right? But as a taxpayer or a ratepayer here, I wonder, is that really,
Well, remember, this is all grant funded.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Well, having said all of that, the one that pops out in my mind would be property number 2. Because it's kind of like right there across from City Hall, right? Sort of. And it's sandwiched in between 2 other buildings, right? Isn't that the one next to our salon, on the corner between there and the engineering annex?
Yeah, that's number 2.
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's-
number two.
That's Ken Wilson's, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is too. And so, you know, in my mind, that would be the one that I would probably want to look at. But, you know, then again, I'm not the property owner. I don't know how difficult he is or how open-minded he might be to, you know, doing a development there or passing it along to somebody else who would want to. But the other properties are kind of ringed by residential areas. Well, not the downtown ones, but the ones down farther on Citrus Fair and Rockydale. You know, those are kind
Yeah.
of residential areas. So
At this point, I think site number 3 might be also for the same reason as Commissioner Sanders on number 2, is that it's very right there in the center of town. It's
mhm.
next to the plaza, and it has a possibly willing landowner now who might be interested in finding out what could be done to it. It's had some problems with ownership in the past, but it's moved on a little bit from that. So I think we have a chance there.
Slightly
Hey,
bigger.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just going to say that one of the advantages of this site over number 2 is that it's twice as large. So there'll be a lot more flexibility about the kinds of development you can show on this site as opposed to the other one. And we want to have a site that kind of it serves as an example. So it's not only this one parcel where you could do this, but this is hopefully something that can be replicated on a different site in some way, form or other.
I think the community impact would be greater also.
And we
That
did
is
at one
true.
point, we did entertain the possibility of extending it to First Street. And I don't know the ownership of those properties. But we've left it at the half-acre site. If we do extend it, that might be a little overwhelming. But we have entertained that potential.
Yeah, this is a 2-story building here, but this seems to be fairly underutilized. I don't know. It's a small building on a larger site. So I don't know if there's some way to extend it. But then you get into multiple property owners and so forth. So I don't know. Some thoughts about that?
Well, I do agree with it. And because given this is a real high level conceptual idea, you know, not binding to anything. I mean, it would seem to be more, I mean, this is like a key block downtown. And I certainly respect the businesses that are in there. I mean, that's my barber in there and I love that guy, but you know, it's certainly just for this conceptual exercise, extending it down to First Street makes a lot of sense to me, but I defer to the commission. I mean, maybe
Well,
that could be.
I mean, I do like that a lot too. You know, I'm sure that you know, the barber shop in there, it's been there an awful long time. You know, look at some of the old photos of downtown. That barber shop has been there a long time. So I don't know.
Is
but
that the one on the corner? Where's the barber shop?
that's Wertz right there. The one in the
It's the-
corner, Wertz barbershop right across the street from Papa's Pizza, sort of
Uh-huh.
right
Well,
there.
it's the bigger building there, Bruce. It's the
Oh.
it's
two-story.
divided. No, to the north.
Lot B,
That one.
right there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
half laundromat
Yeah.
and half barber shop, which, you know, laundromat is very critical for the community too. but,
Definitely.
they're very expensive to redo with water fees, but I'm going on a tangent now, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe that could be phase 2 of a design concept or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there-
The only reason why I was looking at the other lot was because there's nothing there.
Right.
You know, you wouldn't have to do anything with the buildings that are there because there aren't any.
Wilson, yeah.
Well, yeah, except for that, you know, of course. But you know, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me if all we're doing is a high level conceptual design. That could be applied to anywhere
Right.
downtown. So, you know, honestly, I don't think it really matters.
Okay. What I am hearing and maybe getting some general agreement on is that a downtown site, one of these three, would be better in some way than trying to do something down here on one of these sites down here. Is there general agreement about that?
Yes, I think,
Okay,
I think the property at 4 would be problematic because it's kind of waiting on what's going to happen across the street.
yeah,
And its value will probably go up as the across the street gets built. So I would hesitate to even try to imagine what could go there now.
Well,
Yeah.
four is also, they're already talking to people about, hotels and things going in there, so I wouldn't bother with
Yeah.
4.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then 5 seems like a one-off, right? That's not something that you could say, oh, here's something you could build in other parts of town. Because it does
Yeah.
seem like it's in a specific context,
Mhm.
Okay, well, I think this is useful. I think we can work further with staff and certainly let whoever is the appropriate property owner or owners know that we're doing this project. So I think, there won't be a surprise when we show up at a community workshop and, property owner comes and sees us with a plan for their site. So we'll head that off. Well, I think it's been a really good conversation. Is there, let's see, Abe, was there anything else we wanted to know about opportunity sites?
I think we got great feedback.
Yeah.
So thank
Well,
you.
one thing I would mention is I think we would show a kind of a at least two schemes that might show what's possible with the existing zoning. And then if there's a tweak or a change, refinement to the zoning, what would be possible with that project then? So just so we can see a kind of resulting, here's what might result if we do some zoning changes. So I think that would be our intent there. Okay.
I have
Yeah.
one more last question. On the CEQA documents timeline, you have July, November. Are those going to be, is that going to be an environmental impact report?
We're currently thought of, and I'll let Kevin weigh in too, but it's currently thought of as an initial study, mitigated neg deck, because it's a change to the zoning code. And what we have to look into that more and determine that, but it's not anticipated to be a full EIR right now.
I
Agree
don't know
with
if this,
that.
yeah, because the one we have is a 2009. It's kind of old since it's 12 years old.
Are you referring to the general plan EIR?
Yeah, the general plan, the ERR, that one is 12 years old, and that's the one that everyone looks at. How soon is that one updated, and what's the cost on something like that?
In timeline.
Well,
Emotional or money?
a general plan update's about 700 grand. What do you think, Bruce?
Cloverdale. Yeah. I mean, that's going to require a significant amount of CEQA work that has to now look at some new sections that it didn't look at in 2009. So there'll be some brand new sections for greenhouse gas, climate change, but also safety is a major one that needs to be updated, and that can be costly. It's great to do it, but I don't think you're going to escape for less than that $750,000 for something of this scale. So it's but there are some grant funds available for to maybe help with some costs, but a lot of assembly probably going to be required to get that done.
And we only had 29 meetings on the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an engaged community, and that factors into it too. It's not going to be. I mean, it's a great community, but it's a lot of meetings like you mentioned, and probably a pretty activist general plan advisory committee too.
Yes.
I don't think Mike wants to go through that again, and I'm sure I don't.
Okay,
That's how I got my white hair.
That's why I don't have any.
good. Well, you guys were part of that. That's good. You can bring some insight to our project for sure.
Any other questions from the commission?
Well, it's just a little comment on the last general plan. It says 12,000 by 2025. Well, that didn't take into account the economic downturn. Maybe they did a little bit. The takeaway of it just flew out of my mind. The state took our
Rena?
Redevelopment.
redevelopment fund.
Oh, redevelopment, yeah.
It
Yeah.
couldn't have anticipated the pandemic. So 3,000 in the next few years is going to be a tough sell. I don't
Yeah.
want to see 3,000 automatically. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I hear you. Yeah, well, your RENA number sounds more reasonable than that for sure. And it actually seems pretty achievable. Well, this has been great input, and you're all really quite knowledgeable. This is great to see the commission engaged in this and helping us along. So as we mentioned, we'll be honing in on a site. We'll be working with staff to do some concepts, and then we will be coming to a community meeting. Let's see, is there a end slide, Abe? I think.
Yes.
Sometime in June. Probably at this point, I think, Abe, it's later June. But we will certainly keep you apprised, and we would hope that the commission can come to the workshop and help engage. And I think it will be a virtual workshop, that it will still need to be that in June. And then we'll be working on amendments July, August, and another workshop, like we said, in fall. And there may be a chance for an in-person workshop. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Any questions about the timeline or next steps? Great. Well, that's very useful. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bruce and Abe. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be in touch.
Okay, are we all signing off or just Placeworks?
This place works. So we got to end our meeting and go through
Okay.
the agenda.
Nice meeting you all, and we'll
Thanks.
talk to you
Along.
soon.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We can open this up to public if there is any out there. Irene, do we have any hands waved or?
Yes, we have 2 hands, and we will start with Christina Lepe Duarte.
Okay.
So go ahead, Christina.
Good evening to all. This is Christina Lepe Duarte, and I wanted to give some insight. I just watched the presentation on the 5 properties that were chosen, and I would like to invite our planning commission to take a really good look at number 5 Rockydale Lane. And I bring this up because I've delivered food to Railroad Avenue. There's about 62 mobile homes. Actually, they're actually fifth wheels that are parked side to side, and the driveways are pretty much one way. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there are so many children in that complex, families, and that property on Rockydale Lane there, that's where the children played on their bikes and they roamed. That was their place. And I know it's a private property, but it's just something that I want you guys to be aware of. That is the place where the children played. That was their sanctuary. And so now that I've been there in maybe about a month and a half, I saw that the fence went up. And so I questioned that. Well, now it's making more sense. So just some insight, a concerned community member, advocate here, and I want to talk about that. I also want to echo the importance of that wishing well. That is by far for the people that aren't as fortunate to have their washer and dryers at home. That's where they go to wash their clothes. And for us to even talk about messing with anything that has to do with that, that concerns me. So I thank you guys for the time, and please take what I have to share into consideration.
Thank you.
Next, we have Helen.
Good evening, Planning Commission.
Good evening.
I am very interested. I have a bunch of things to say. Let's see what's first. One is, I'm Bob, I'm young, and I do not want Windsor, and I do not want buildings over 2 stories tall. Because I think what we'll end up with is a New York skyscraper effect, because Windsor has a big plaza with a lot of space, and I think we'll block out the sunlight and it'll be cold and crummy. I'd like to see the company work on making the plaza bigger, right? Because for the people we have, we don't have a big enough plaza. We have to shut the street down. We could use a lot for farmers market. Like Christina said, maybe we could put a park, not an official park, but some sort of natural play structures, something for the community. If I was going to go after a project, I'd go after Rockydale Lane because it's out of the way. And I think if you wanted to do high density, it won't be as noticeable because you already have high density there. I would like to see the people look at a roundabout. I love the Healdsburg roundabout. If you haven't been on it, it's amazing. It works really well. I use it multiple times a day. And a roundabout at that entrance at Citrus Fair and Cloverdale Boulevard could be something that we could spend money on and set the infrastructure to make downtown a really nice place. Do you want to say anything, babe? Okay. So I don't like, if I was the property owner of one of those 5 properties and you told me what I could do with it, I would be so angry and so stubborn and so insulted. I would dig in my heels and I would not sell it and I would not do those changes. And I would be very careful about telling somebody else what they can do with their property. So unless we're talking about buying it for the city and the common good, I would tread lightly. And I think it's going to be a big waste of money. Do you have anything, Garrett? All right. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other hands are raised
No other?
here.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. One more.
Okay.
Looks like we have Angela.
Hi there. So I'm sorry, I came into this a little late because I was working, but I understand, I'm not sure if this is the same discussion regarding the impact of opening up the zoning for downtown area and transit oriented. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you need to take into effect the water infrastructure, traffic, the congestion that this is going to cause our schools. I'm pretty sure it's not going to just be single or elderly people moving here. There's going to be families. We don't have the capacity at our school to handle that. The water infrastructure has been a nonstop discussion as it is with the current, housing that you guys are approving. And I also wanted to discuss how it appears that apparently we sold out on our police department and gave up their parcel in Town Square to possibly put in a 4-story apartment building. And I have to agree with the woman that was just speaking. We all moved to Cloverdale for a reason, for the small town effect, the home feeling of this town, the friendliness. you know, you start making this to become Windsor and Healdsburg and god awful Santa Rosa, that's the crowds you're going to start attracting. So you guys really need to take all of that into consideration before you destroy our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any additional?
No additional hands, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you. With that, we'll take it back to the commission. We have any closing thoughts on the presentation we just had? Okay, seeing none, we're all good. So we will close that part of our meeting and move on to other business, which we have none. And then planners report communications.
Okay, the city council is going to consider a new appointment to the planning commission to fill Commissioner Reyes's alternate spot. It's Melissa Springler, and that will be on the next city council agenda. We are moving forward with our housing element RFP. It was looked at today by the Planning and Sustainability Subcommittee, which any of you guys are welcome to join in anytime. We'd love to have you if you have the time. There's going to be an RFP. It's going to go to the city council first. Once they're okay with it, then we'll release the request for proposals for consultants to start this housing element process that we've been talking about over the last year. It is a state mandated process, so hopefully we'll end. To the state's credit, this time they have provided some grant money, so it's going to be very little money out of pocket for the city to complete this process. So we're happy to hear about that. We are in discussions for a new development on Oste Road, just south of Crocker Road. It's kind of near the entrance to All Coast. It's a TOD zoned parcel, and more to come on that. I don't have a lot to share, but it's in the works, and we have been discussing with a private developer interested in putting some housing there, which will be before you if it makes it that far. We'll be before the commission.
Okay.
Other than that, we don't have any other new applications. That's pretty much it. I mentioned the water calculator, or the water and wastewater calculator. That's underway, so we're excited to get that done for our consulting engineers and give the planning commission a little more confidence, at least in our ability to clean water and serve water and provide wastewater service. So I think that's it. And Ralph, you got anything else, or?
Just be on the lookout for the agenda for the May 4th Planning Commission meeting. We will be holding that meeting, and so far the only item on the agenda there is it's a plan sign program for the Vintners Co-op building, which so obviously nearing, I guess, completion there at the south end of town. So they want to do I believe 3 wall signs and the monument sign, and the need for the plan sign program is because the plan sign program essentially allows applicants to exceed the regulations of what would be called the administrative sign plan or sign permit. So they would just be exceeding that by the number of wall signs, and then the fact that the monument sign would be on a parcel with less than 2 businesses. It's just what the regulations call for. So that would be the project. Other than that, I'm not sure if there's anything else on the agenda at this point, but that'll be on the May 4th Planning Commission agenda.
Yeah, that should be a pretty light agenda. So
Okay.
That concludes our report.
Okay, we have any planning commission directives to staff? Seeing none. Okay, so I'll call this meeting to adjourn to our next meeting, Tuesday, as Beth mentioned, May 4th at 6:30 p.m.
Very good.
Okay,
Thanks again for accommodating us on a special meeting. And just real quick, Commissioner Waggy was here from the beginning. He was on the guest side, so we We brought him over, so just so you know, he did hear everything. So thank you.
And thank you for all your comments, everybody.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right, take
Thanks
care.
for everybody.
Any further?
Bye.
Good night.